Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, November 3rd, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about the 2022 generic congressional vote, the generic ballot, the indicator for red and blue waves across this country that have given us a general idea as to how elections were going to go well in advance as we head into the final days of the 2022 midterm elections. We are expecting these numbers to indicate and tell us what we should expect on this upcoming Tuesday. Now, it's crazy to think about, but we are, in fact, 5 days away until the actual midterm elections. It's been a long time coming. We've been 2 years into this, talking about these elections ever since 2020 was over, and it's been quite fascinating, to say the least. I've loved this entire journey with you guys, and I'll make a more concrete reflection video on the midterm elections as we head into next Tuesday. I'm actually doing a project for one of my classes where I'm predicting the midterm elections as my final exam, so that'll be quite interesting. I'll share that with you guys because that's going to be purely based off of data analysis based off of expert predictions from a bunch of different pundits. So that'll be quite an interesting prediction to compare it to the actual results. And it's my first actual time revealing a House level prediction. So I want to take a look at that. We'll talk about that when we actually get to that point. But in today's video, our topic is not about predicting an individual district by district level, but more so focusing on, again, the national top line, which is the generic ballot. Today, we stand at a point where the Republican Party leads by 3 points on average across the entire country. Democrats are at just 45% in terms of their respective vote share, while Republicans are up by about at 48%. Republicans are nearing the 50% mark, which is very bad news for the Democratic Party on more fronts than one, but specifically on the front that the margin ultimately puts the Republican Party in the advantage. Now, the reason why I say that I don't know exactly how much we can actually take away, or why I've said this in the past, why I don't know if we can take away concrete determinations based off the generic ballot is because sometimes the polls are off on the national generic ballot. They've been off by 3 to 4 points in the past, sometimes in favor of Democrats, sometimes in favor of Republicans, but ultimately, looking at our numbers here, I'm starting to arrive at a conclusion where we're seeing a clear and consistent trend in favor of the Republican Party, and that will likely tell us what we can expect on Election Day. I will also say the big news of this, the big takeaway from this is that Republicans are leading nationwide. The reason why that's significant is because Democrats on a baseline should be winning the national popular vote. And the reason why that is true is because Democrats have more compact groups of voters. They have a number of uncontested races where they'll be getting a significant portion of the electorate. But the problem lies in the fact that Democrats are not the favorites to win the popular vote, which indicates that not only is the year not even neutral for Democrats, but in fact, it's significantly better for Republicans than 2020 and 2018. This is a 10-point swing off of 2018 polling. This is a 9-point swing off of 2020 polling. Altogether, it's a very dramatic shift nationwide, and it's something that cannot be ignored. And the reason, too, that I think this is also quite significant is because for a period of time, Democrats were leading on the national level. When Roe versus Wade was overturned, it really changed the national trajectory on the final election polls, and it showed Democrats and Republicans at odds practically every single week. In some cases, Democrats were in the advantage nationwide. But as we got closer to Election Day, as we hit the month of October, it became very apparent that the Republican Party was in fact the favorite party to win these races, that they were going to be the ones who undeniably were going to win control of the House and very likely going to win control of the Senate. As of right now, we see a number of data points that show the Democrats in positions where they are losing to the Republicans by sometimes at most 7 points across the nation. Rasmussen reports has Democrats down by 7. Emerson College has Republicans up by 5. Trafalgar has Republicans up by 6. The average here, Republican plus 3. The only polls that tell us that Democrats are winning across the nation is a poll from the Politico Morning Consult Group that shows Democrats ahead by 5. The Economist YouGov, which was reliably a Democratic poll, shows a tie, and the rest of them, many of which had the Democrats ahead, now show a Republican advantage nationwide. And this seems to be coming in a time frame where Republicans are significantly improving their chances not only on the generic ballot, but also in the United States Senate. For the first time in the past 3 months, the Republican Party has been now the favorites to win control of the Senate. In fact, this is the first time since July 25th. The month of August, September, and October have gone through, so for the first time in over 3 months, the Republicans are in the advantage, and in the advantage by a larger amount than where they were previously. And this is only going to increase by the time we reach Election Day. I mean, if the election was held today, Democrats would quite frankly be in a better position simply on the basis that we were with Republicans and Democrats in a more competitive position. You can see that over the past 3 months, the election would have been better off held any of those days for Democrats. At one point in time, Democrats were expected to gain a seat, not even lose one, but in fact gain. Now they're expected to lose one to the GOP. You're talking about a 2-seat difference here. But it's significant enough to say that Democrats have clearly fallen off from where they were previously. The House forecast is the exact same way. Today, Democrats are at a 15% chance. I'm reminded of the time when Democrats were at a 32% chance. When Democrats were at a 1 in 3 chance at winning control of the House of Representatives, it was a very, very good showing, and it was one the Democrats were very happy about. The special elections were going in their favor. Polling data was going in their favor. States such as Pennsylvania was becoming likely blue. The state of Wisconsin was becoming a true and total toss-up. Ohio was competitive. North Carolina was getting there. Everything was looking in favor of the Democratic Party, and so was everybody else. The generic ballot was in favor of the Democrats. Now it's in favor of the Republicans. I mean, everything was lining up for what was going to be Democrats neutralizing the red wave. And now Republicans are surfing it to victory, and they are doing so by a pretty significant amount. The polling lead here for the Republican Party is not reminiscent of any election until you go back to 2014, when Republicans led nationwide by a margin of 2.4%. They ended up winning by 5.7%. The Republican underestimation in polling data is one that has been very apparent over the past couple of election cycles. Personally, I think we are in for an underestimation yet again. It's just what has historically been accurate. I think you have Republicans winning in a number of Senate races right now, where even FiveThirtyEight may disagree with me on that front. But altogether, I think Republicans are certainly the ones who are in the advantage and have been for quite some time. I never once thought the House of Representatives would go to the Democratic Party, but I will say that there was a point in time where I floated the possibility of it. And I only floated the possibility of it because it was, in fact, possible when Democrats were up by 3 points nationwide, in addition to the fact that they were able to tap into angers about abortion and other social issues that are no longer the prominent issues. You saw inflation rise in the beginning of the summer, gas prices rise, they started to go down. There is a clear and well-established correlation between gas prices and the president's approval rating. And as gas prices continue to go back up, gas prices are in fact going back up. I know a lot of people have been saying, they're marginally going down. In a number of other parts of the country, they are still going back up from where they were at the lower point about a month and a half ago. But President Biden's approval rating has not improved. In fact, it's plateaued. It's been about 42% for the past couple of weeks, and that's where it likely will remain over the next, potentially, 2 years. President Biden's initiatives clearly are not things that the voters seem to be positively responding to. In addition to that, inflation and gas prices are simply getting worse, and there's not much the Biden admin can do to combat that. That's the ultimate problem when it comes down to where we are right now. I think looking at our 2022 polls for the generic ballot, the Republican Party is ahead by 1 point nationwide, according to FiveThirtyEight. That in itself indicates a red wave. And I know it's hard to really comprehend that a 1 point lead for the GOP can indicate a red wave. But again, remind yourself of the historical underestimation of Republican support across the nation, in addition to the fact that the baseline, the neutral line, should be Democrats winning the national amount. That's why when Democrats were up by, 1 to 2 points, we weren't talking about a wave. We were talking about a neutral year, because that is what a neutral year absolutely is. Democrats winning the popular vote, but quite frankly, narrowly. If Republicans are winning it, it means Democrats are getting blown out. It means Democrats are losing in parts of the country that they otherwise might have won in other circumstances. The House forecast shows the Republican Party in a position where they might push the Democrats below 200. The forecast was at the Democrats' peak 225 to 210. Today, Democrats are down to 204. The generic ballot expectation goes from Republicans plus 2.4 to Republicans plus 4.3. It's not as good as where it was earlier on when we saw Republicans up potentially by 7 points, but the odds are getting there. And ultimately, partisan control is what Democrats and Republicans care about, not necessarily the national popular vote. I will also say that we have seen a very significant swing when it comes down to the betting markets. You can see over the past 90 days, the past 3 months, Democrats were maintaining a clear and consistent advantage when it came down to control of the Senate. And you know what happened? Republicans surged, and now they have maintained a lead nationwide, a significant one at that, and one that is driven by the instability in many of these races where Democrats are going to rely on victories in order to win their elections. According to PredictIt, right now Republicans are in the advantage in Wisconsin, in North Carolina, in Ohio, in Florida, in Iowa, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Nevada, in Pennsylvania. If it went on and on and on, it did for a reason, because in every one of these competitive races, with the exception of New Hampshire, Republicans are leading in the polls or in the betting markets, or sometimes even in the 538 forecast. Democrats are losing some of these elections, and it has become increasingly more apparent over the past couple of weeks. There were points in time where I personally expected Democrats to maintain control of the Senate. In fact, it was a long-standing streak from May of 2022 throughout the entire month, all the way up until mid-October. I had the Democrats in the advantage because, quite frankly, I thought that they were. And I still think at that point in time, if you held the election then, they absolutely were. I don't think Republicans were really coming off too far of a high with Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. Even at this point in time, back in May, I remember how contentious that primary was. Wisconsin was iffy. Mandela Barnes wasn't nearly as disliked as he is today. We didn't really hear much about Ted Budd and Sherry Beasley. That's good news for the GOP, but it doesn't mean there's going to be a red wave. Georgia was narrowly going to go to Walker, but even then, I don't know if that was actually going to be the reality. Cortez Masto was in a better position. Mark Kelly was in a better position. Democrats as a whole were in a better position. And I see these numbers, and I see the shift over time, which had been pretty consistent. In fact, one point in time had Democrats expanding their Senate majority with a 51-49 advantage as late as August and September of 2022. But then October came, and this is when things really took a change. We found a change in the overall national sentiment. Democrats started to lose. Georgia narrowed up. Nevada became red. North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin became red. The next prediction, what happened? Georgia got a little bit more solidified. This was after the scandal dropped about Herschel Walker. We were expecting it to do a lot of damage. You know what it didn't do? A lot of damage. Fast forward a week later, Nevada gets redder. Pennsylvania gets tilt blue. Fast forward a week later, and Republicans are in the advantage. Pennsylvania flips. Nevada maintains as a red flip. Wisconsin, Ohio, North Carolina are red. Georgia and Arizona seemingly untouchable. Fast forward to now. Today, or my prediction yesterday, will show the Democrats narrowly winning Georgia, losing Pennsylvania by a larger margin than predicted previously, losing Nevada, losing Ohio, losing Wisconsin, potentially losing Arizona and New Hampshire. The point being, over the past 4 weeks, we have seen a trend in favor of the Republican Party, and that is exemplified further by the national generic ballot consistently improving for the GOP. I look at these numbers and I tell myself this is what we should have predicted from the moment the midterm elections began. If we knew nothing about these midterm elections, this might be the outcome you would predict. But personally, I would have probably expected a larger margin of victory. Given Joe Biden's severe level of unpopularity, Republicans, quite frankly, should be performing better. I'm going to bring up the 2010 midterm elections because they actually provide a bit of additional context behind, my understanding and my relationship that I have established between presidential approval and generic ballot vote. In 2010, President Obama was disapproved by just 5 percentage points. Just 5 percentage points. To put that into action, 5 points. Democrats ended up losing nationwide by 7, and the RCP average had Republicans up by nearly 10. By nearly 10 points. Gallup had the GOP ahead by 15. CNN had the GOP up by 10. Fox News had the GOP up by 13. Rasmussen had the GOP up by 12. Luckily for Democrats, this is not a 2010 type of environment. But looking back at that, seeing that a president such as Obama could be disapproved of by 5 points, and yet Democrats would lose the national midterm election severely, not just slightly, but severely across the country. And yet Republicans right now, while still very much on track for victory, are not going to replicate that with a president who is disapproved of by 11. Very interesting dynamics, very different types of elections. We are in a different type of election than previously, than we had ever seen before. A high turnout midterm such as 2018, a pro-red midterm unlike 2018, and one that will be for the history books undoubtedly. There will be severe electoral ramifications depending on who wins individual races. Should Carrie Lake, the GOP nominee for governor in Arizona, win that race, who knows what happens if Biden actually ends up winning that state and she doesn't recognize the fair election that will occur in that state. Or what happens when you take a look at other parts of the country where Democrats might get into office and might, push for different policies that Republicans don't exactly find to be too beneficial on that front too. They're not exactly equivalencies. I think they're false equivalencies, at the very least. But I do think there are severe and impactful electoral ramifications depending on the outcome of these midterms. probably more on one side than the other, but still, regardless, that statement is true. And I think looking at our generic congressional vote, so much has gone back in favor of the Republican Party. And the question is, will they maintain this over the next 5 days? My answer is a resounding yes. I truly believe these polls are not going to change between now and Tuesday, and there's not much the Democrats can do about it. And Republicans, quite frankly, just need to continue riding this wave that they have been over the past month. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.